Cusic with the Music Biz, and today I have with me Mike Blanton, who is co-founder and co-president of Blanton Harrell Management Company, a management company that manages a number of gospel acts, including Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith and Kathy Tricoli, and also has Reunion Records, co-founder and co-president of that. I'll stop at that.
No, keep going. I like it.
Mike, how did you get into the music industry to start with?
Well, I got into it in college, just kind of as an extracurricular activity. I thought I was going to be a dentist all my life because my dad was a dentist, so hey. But started messing around with the music things and came to Nashville just on a summer fluke, just to, see, well, how do you make it in music? And managed a group that was signed to ABC Records at the time, and Hudson Farnsworth. And worked out at Opryland, did whatever I could, try to get into the music business, and basically almost starved to death and moved back to Texas. And I was in Texas for about 6 months and got a phone call from Word Records, which is the largest contemporary Christian distributor and producer, and they wanted me to come work in the A&R department. So it was one of those fluke calls, and where I had made enough friends here in Nashville that my name had gotten around, and I got the phone call from Word, so I moved to Waco, Texas, which is the headquarters for Word, and I went to work in their A&R department. And that's where it started. I was there for about a little over 3 years, heading up and doing all kinds of projects for Word, and finally decided I was tired of doing product development and wanted to get into artist development. When you work for a label and they sit there and go, hey, here is Joe Leaf, he's a hot new act, and you're sitting there going, I don't even like Joe Leaf, but we've signed him and I've got to go do an album on the guy. And I knew that I had to believe in some certain artists, and that if we were given enough time and enough room to develop them, that eventually we could work this into some strong careers. And so,
how did Blanton and Harrell?
Well, one morning, Dan Harrell, who was my banker at the time, had been a banker for 7 years, was Amy's manager, pseudo-manager, because he was the closest one to her as a brother-in-law. I was her record label executive with Word, and one morning at the pantry down here, we just said, it's time to start a new company. And so we, over coffee, decided to start a new company called Blanton Harrell Productions, and we kicked off, and that was a little over 5 years now.
I have heard that the major difference between gospel and secular music is that gospel views itself as a ministry and secular views itself as entertainment. What does that mean?
Well, I think that's the traditional past of gospel music. I grew up strongly involved in rock and roll music. In fact, if you'd have told me I was going to be in gospel music, 10 years ago, at this point, I would have said, "You're crazy." I don't even understand gospel music. But I think once I realized gospel music was basically, or music is a reflection of a person's lifestyle and heartfelt feelings, it was much easier for me to understand and get involved in gospel music. I think gospel music, Christians feel like that this music ministers life to whoever hears it. They feel like it carries more than just in an entertainment facade to it. But at the same time, I think we're in the stage of also saying music is entertaining. And what we're trying to do is take strong, stable people and involve them in the entertainment industry, and realize that we hope it's carrying more than just a frivolous message of, party time, but it's got some roots to it that although there's struggle in life, there's hope on the other end. We feel like there's a lot of kids out there that are just going, just tell me life's going to be okay. There's hope at the other end or something, I don't know how to compete in this big market called the world. And I think a lot of our music is very encouraging, very entertaining, but I think it's very encouraging and very hopeful.
How does marketing gospel music differ from marketing secular music?
Well, the actual system of marketing is not really that much different. You still have to come up with a marketing game plan and figure out, do we get on radio, do we go to in-store merchandising, mailers, doing all kinds of concert promotion. All that basically looks and feels a lot the same way that you do it in the secular music. But it is bigger in secular music and pop music. The system's much bigger. I think marketing-wise, it's
But aren't
very
the
similar.
outlets different? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there's a network of Christian bookstores that sell records.
True. And I think that comes because we've become such a much more specific society. I mean, there's magazines for everything from how to put a chair together to how to run a computer. I feel like the specifics of our society right now has become dramatized not only in our magazines but cable television. I mean, there's a cable TV program for just about everything you can think of. I think that's the same thing. The Christian or contemporary Christian or gospel market is a pretty well-defined marketplace too. It's got its own record stores, bookstores, and outlets that have been very, very strong in introducing and selling these Christian artists that are out there.
Doesn't that serve to isolate the Christian subculture, though?
I think somewhat it has, but I think all we're starting to see is things always change. That's one of our mottos at Blanton Herald. Things always change. And where it has been, it's been very good because it has been isolation in terms of the way the market's been so far. I feel like there's some of that that's kind of changing. And you're seeing some of the discount records here and Katz Records starting to carry the Petra product and the Amy Grant product and the Michael Smith and Sandy Patty, and I feel like at the same time the Koinonia bookstore, which is a strong Christian bookstore here, is also carrying U2. So I see there's some cross-pollination going on there, and I think it's just the sign of the times, basically.
Who buys gospel records? The image for years has been blue-haired old ladies buying gospel records. Who's buying gospel records now?
Well, I think for us it's kids. If there's been a target area for the last 5 years that we've been trying to communicate to much more effectively has been the youth market. I mean, kids always buy the records. I think there's always going to be, I tell you what, the basic way I can describe it is I think in the past, rock and roll music has basically separated families. The parents couldn't understand why the kids want to listen to it. The kids were going, this is my music. And so it created a gap. I think what we're seeing today is the kind of rock and roll music, if I can use that term, and rock and roll has got a wide spectrum to it, but the kind of high pop rock music that we're putting out is actually bringing families together. You're starting to see the mom and dad take the 8- and 6-year-old kid to a Michael Smith concert, which is just bringing it all back together. And I think there's lots of kids who are buying this product. I mean, for us to be selling the kind of numbers that we are, you've got to realize Amy Grant has just gone platinum. Never before has that ever happened. She didn't do that on MTV. She didn't do that on pop radio. That's all happened due to this massive selling audience. Michael Smith has sold almost 450,000 units, and everybody's going, well, who is Michael W. Smith?
But isn't that mostly done through the Christian bookstore network?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's got to come through this new youth movement that's becoming aware of contemporary Christian music. But it's obviously, that's mostly coming through the sales through the Christian bookstores.
Okay, and most of these are church kids. Most of these are nice, church-going, clean-cut kids.
I guess.
Rock and roll.
I think it's the same kid that's going to see U2 that's going to see Michael W. Smith. The same kid that's going to see Madonna is going to go see him at Amy Grant. I mean, although there's different groups there and there's some different places, I think there's a whole new cultural thing going on in our country that's saying, yeah, we like to be conservative. We like everything to feel a little bit more stable. And, we threw away all those traditions. Maybe we shouldn't have thrown everything out. Maybe there's some good family traditions that are worth hanging on to. And I think that's part of the...
But does the gospel make a philosophical and spiritual demand of an audience that rock and roll doesn't make?
I don't know about that. I feel like everybody's preaching something. I feel like everybody... I mean, we went to see Twisted Sister. Everybody from Frankie Goes to Hollywood, everybody's got something they're preaching. And I feel like contemporary Christian music certainly has a philosophy to it. But I don't feel like it's a cram down your throat, which I think is part of the perceived image of gospel music in the past. Oh, well, this is gospel. This must be an attempt to try to convert me. And Amy got up in front. We had a big meeting with Amy's new albums on A&M Records also, co-distributed with A&M and with Word, which is kind of the first of its kind. But I think part of the concern is, well, is this girl going to preach something on me? And Amy just got up and said, I feel like that if everybody had a choice, that Christian the Christian values that we really sing about in our music would probably be something everybody would really want to have in this country, of honesty, that there's of joy, of just peace. All these things are really something that we shouldn't be afraid of. That's not something we're trying to force down somebody's throat, but that is a philosophical viewpoint that's going to come through our music and hopefully have over the long haul, have a big effect on our culture and our environment. That's something we feel like that's 20 years from now, everybody's going to look back and say, there was something going on in our culture that was reflecting honesty. Let's do things right. You know, I want to live right. I want to get things together in my own life and things like that.
There's a whole lot of artists wanting to get signed to labels, trying to get signed with a label. What's wrong with most of them? Is there any common threads?
Yeah, we call it the yellow flag. Did you get a yellow flag on that person, or what did you think? Or because there's so many different pieces that have to all come together, and part of it's the way you look, part of it's the way you think, and your actual talent. I would put those in the same category. You've got to have a sharp head. You can't really be a dingbat. I think you have to have a pretty good head about what you're doing, confidence-wise. And you have to have just a real good talent in some area. And then number 3, believability. And I can't emphasize that believability. When I finally run into an artist that I feel like that's got those 3 areas pretty well together, something just clicks in me. And I have gone crazy on some people before that nobody wanted to pay attention to because they go, well, they're not really an artist. They're this way, or they're really, they're this kind of person, or maybe they're just a songwriter. Maybe they're just... But boy, I would see something that would draw all those pieces together for me, and I would go after it. And boy, when you see it, it's a gut feeling for me. And I realize that's the fun part about the music business, is everybody's got an idea of what's going to make it happen. The great thing is I didn't have to do it the way Clive Davis did, or the way Jim Guercio did with Caribou Ranch, with Chicago and everything. He saw something with Chicago in the early days nobody else saw. I saw something with some other people that nobody else saw, and it was important, Dan Harrell and I, to join forces together and go after it. And
how about management? Does the same thing apply with management? Why you would want to manage somebody and not want to manage other people?
Yeah, I think management, actually we're kind of in a phase right now where we started out strong management. The management has not really grown that much. The bigger an artist gets, the less time you have to manage a whole bunch of artists. So you become more focused on fewer artists. But the record label, Reunion Records, that we have right now, is becoming a stronger horse that I think we will probably sign new artists to in greater frequency. But only because we are still an artist development company. If I could compare us to somebody that everybody in this interview probably would know, would be A&M Records. I feel like we have got a tendency to look and be more like a real strong artist development type company. The same thing they've done with Bryan Adams, I feel like we're going to do with some artists too down the road of time.
Okay, so let me just recapitulate just a little bit. The key characteristics that you're looking for from manager and record company of an artist is the believability, is the physical appearance, is the raw talent.
Right.
That's really, okay, now you've signed an artist that's got these factors, then what? As a record label, you send them into the studio, right?
Well, we're known for not doing that. Almost everybody we've signed, we said, now just sit and wait. And it's kind of like Kathy Tricoli, who's one of our female artists from New York, Long Island. She came down here, and the girl can sing like crazy. And we had her set for 2 years. And I think we about drove her crazy, but in the meantime, what we were trying to do is say, you've got all these pieces now, but we're trying to come up with one initial package of how are we going to present you. And I think if we'd have done an album the minute she hit, she mentally wouldn't have been ready for it. And we needed that 2 years to conceptualize where we were going. And at this point, her career is off and running. And we look back at that 2 years, and it's like, boy, that feels like 2 months now instead of 2 years. It paid off so big for us in terms of artist development. And our biggest thing is not to just go do another album project. We want to throw some very stable but highly creative and highly entertaining type people out there into the middle of the pool where the sharks are. And if you haven't got a real strong team behind you, I think you're gonna run into some real problems. You're gonna sign some bad deals. You're gonna do some bad things.
Okay. Also, with pre going into the studio and pre making a record, don't you want to figure out what this artist has to say and
Oh, absolutely.
select the songs that are going to fit all that?
Absolutely.
How much
I mean,
say-so do you have over songs?
Oh, quite a bit right now. I'm a real song picky type person, and I have my own idea of what songs are going to work. I work very closely with Brown Bannister, who is also signed to us for management and is part of our whole production thing. But Brown and I have been together for 15 years, so our communication's at a peak right now in terms of the way we can communicate with each other. But he and I really have a handle on our songs. We're fixing to do a new album with a guy named Richard Mullins. And Brown and I are very involved in helping identify with Richard and the producer what are going to be the songs on the album. After we identify those songs, then we'll let the producer and the artist go to work in the studio and start making the thing come together. But very involved in the songs. Bottom line, if the songs aren't there, even if the talent's phenomenal, if you can sing like crazy but you've done the wrong songs, I don't think you're going to get anywhere.
Okay, you've got the songs, you go into the studio. About how much money are you going to spend on an act? I know that's an impossible question to answer because every budget's different, but ballpark figure, how much money are you going to spend on a debut album?
On a debut, it's going to be somewhere between $20,000 to $40,000, depending on several things. Who's producing, where are we doing the project, how are we doing the project, if it's going to be more of a raw band feel or is it going to be kind of an LA pop feel, Depending on the actual conceptual design of it, we're going to try to hold the budget in those parameters some way.
And then from there, it's the artist's track record on how much money you're going to spend on an album.
After that, we will work that project at our company. We have a publicity people, we have publishing people, we have a marketing set up with Word Records right now, who does all of our marketing, and we try to just map out a game plan over the long haul that's going to help sell that artist. Hopefully a year later we're going to be able to sit back and say, okay, it was well worth our investment dollar to do that, we're ready to go do another album. But more than just doing the product, I've got to keep coming back to this, we're not going to start out with an artist unless we feel like there is some long-term development that's going to pay off. Because you've got, we're more than just a giant distributor who's just trying to find more product to feed the system. We really want to throw some quality people out there, and we realize it takes some time to get that going.
You've got the tape in your hand.
Got it.
Finished album.
Love it.
What's next?
At that point of getting the actual artwork developed and working through some local people here in town that I've developed some relationship with, we'll go in and come up with a conceptual design of what the actual album cover and the sequencing is going to be and the title of the album. And then we get all that running through Word. Basically, at that point, we really start interfacing with them in terms of here's what it's going to look like, here's what it's going to sound like. We go through a sales conference, present the product there. A&M may pick it up at that point and run it through their label at the same time, simultaneously. And so then we just start the actual marketing. We may then turn around and go, okay, now this artist needs to be out on the road with another big name artist, either playing with them like we did with Michael Smith. We had him for 2 years out with Amy playing keyboards, and we'd give him a little set in the middle of Amy's show. But all of that was creatively done to try to begin to build the career for Michael W. Smith, which at this point he's just had his own first tour that was tremendous. It was just tremendous.
Okay, now marketing plan. What is your marketing plan going to include? Is it going to include ad buys? Is it going to include, what is it going to include?
Radio. Obviously try to, although
you talk about promotion, getting the single on the radio.
Getting the single, we will pick a single that will be shipped from Word to the radio stations, and then we will start working that, whether with independent promoters or with the actual Word radio people. We do it both ways. Then in-store merchandising is a big key. There will be maybe a mobile built that will hang, or a poster that will be sent to the store, or something like that. And then number 3 will be the actual concert tour promotion that goes through to the major markets that says this artist is coming, and so you start the whole talk that this is a real person, that they're actually going to come and do a concert, and all these things have to interface together to make some sense. In the Christian market, which I say, at that point, if you can get the in-store and the radio starting to work, that's where the initial talk's going to come from. And if it's new enough and it's believable enough, then you're going to start getting some traffic on it. People are going to start talking, and it's a word-of-mouth situation. The same thing it is with almost any pop artist. Hey, have you heard so-and-so? And you're going to run down and go, yeah, I just heard that on the radio. Is that who it is? Tears for Fears? I'm into it. Let's go get that. You know, you go buy the album.
Yeah. Okay. So people know about a gospel artist primarily through radio and in stores.
Right.
Okay, now, isn't gospel radio, for a long time it was geared more towards albums than singles. Is it geared more towards singles now?
It's trying to be. I still think that you still got Joe Smith out here that runs, you know, the Christian radio, that's still anxious to get that album because he still wants to pick out the single the single off of the album that he wants to go with. And in a new artist, you don't want to lose that shot either. You definitely, you may have a strong single that a majority of the radio stations will go with, but at the same time, if in Tulsa this guy's going, yeah, but I want to play this other one, you want to make sure he's got your album on a debut artist to be able to play that, because all that's going to translate into is more attention and more sales on that product.
Traditionally, gospel radio has been not as together as secular radio. They have the preaching and teaching programs which pay for the station.
True.
Block a lot of time, and so you don't have an all-music station.
Right.
And people, if they play one record one day, it might be 2 weeks before they play it again.
That's right. Formatting's not really...
They could care less about the national charts. If something's a national hit, they'll ignore it and play, you know, cut 3, side 2. Do you still face that?
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's great improvement in that. That's not typical. That's not the... well, there's a lot of stations who have good formatting, who do a real good all-music programming, but that's not that is the battle we fight in terms of trying to get airplay and get more people paying attention. I feel like there's a sign that there's more kids who are starting to pay attention to the Amy Grants, the Michael W. Smiths, the Steve Taylors, the Petras, and as a result, that's starting to force and help bring radio where they're starting to go, hey, if the kids are paying attention to this, maybe we ought to pay more attention to it. And just due to the market response to the product, I think it's forcing the radios to kind of follow suit in some.
Can people like Petra and Michael Smith and more, the more rock element break out of radio, or is it more, or are they more dependent upon coming out of the bookstores and tours?
I think they're more dependent upon their concerts, and I don't think they're as dependent upon radio. We've all had to work around radio. Rock and roll has just not been the greatest fad on Christian radio, and everybody's been a little scared of it actually where it's supposed to fit in. And so everybody that's been more or less inclined towards good rock and roll entertaining type music with a Christian lyric to it has had to go more towards a okay, I'm going to put on a great concert that's going to create a buzz, and I'm also going to get do a good in-store and get youth groups in that particular area aware of what this is about, where we're coming from, you know. And so once the talk on the street's going and they come and see this great, this well-produced show with good music, boy, it starts the buzz, and it starts the whole thing going.
Another traditional opinion on gospel is that they sell most of their records at concerts. Do you sell
No,
most of those?
Not for us. That's not true.
Do you sell a lot?
Well, it's really funny. I don't feel like we sell nearly as many as once believed. I mean, like an example is on Michael Smith's tour and Kathy's tour we just got back from. There were 6,000 kids in Seattle, sold out concert there. We sold very few product. We sold lots of T-shirts and sweatshirts, but very few product because everybody there pretty well knew the product on both of these people.
They got the product ahead of time.
And I attribute that a lot to an aggressive bookstores in that area and a fairly decent radio activity going on that created the hubbub once again. All of a sudden we showed up and there's 6,000 kids in Seattle.
How many units sold is a successful album? Gospel album. Is it compared to the pop market, or?
Well, in some ways, I think it's better. We would be very happy with an artist who sells. I mean, we would take a debut artist and hope to get them up to 50,000 units. That doesn't always happen, but then people like Michael and KT go well beyond that. And Michael is doing the best for us on Reunion and has sold almost 450,000 units on 2 albums, which is phenomenal. Which is much better.
Each album?
No, that's combined between the two. So 225 basically, and on the average. The difference is On Michael, I feel like that there's such a good response to him that is the phenomenon that you want to look at for any record label is, you know, is there somebody that's going to sell very, very well? And with Michael, I think we're having that little bit of success right now. But that even the 200,000 sales is good for a lot of pop artists. Man, there's a lot of people who, if I could sell 200,000, it'd be great. Country, you know, definitely is. I feel like we're in the same running place that country is on a lot of their acts.
But if a gospel artist, traditional, you know, what we've known as gospel artists, consistently sells 50, 60, 70,000, are they a successful artist?
Yeah, I think they're definitely successful. They're reaching a marketplace out there, and I think it's only a question of can this thing get bigger, and that's what you'll continue to hunt. The biggest problem is if somebody sells 50 or 60, the tendency is, well, we can put a little bit more money into production here and try to, you know, I think it's going to pay off in hopes that it's going to turn into a 100,000 seller. If it never quite kicks in there, you've got to be careful that your production costs don't get out of line with what else is going on.
How about videos? Are videos big in the gospel market?
It's kind of beginning to get there. Video is still a promotional tool. There's no other way you can look at it. You've got to either use it out of advertising dollars because there's not much way it's going to sell. On Michael Smith, we just shot an entire concert that we're going to put into a video concert package and sell for $19.98 or something like that. But I feel like we are still doing videos. On Amy, we're doing a new video. But part of that is mostly just because it's going to be good advertising to help sell this album through.
Who's watching them?
Well, in the gospel side, it's once again it's small little pockets here and there. There's a big station out in L.A. called Channel 40 that has real videos, a 30-minute program that shows a lot of Christian videos. CBN is fixing to come up with a video show for on CBN, and some of those are still coming around. But right now, it's pretty dangerous to spend too much money trying to do many Christian videos because there's just not too many places to go plug it in. As Amy or as more artists are growing into the more mass market areas, I feel like you're going to see a lot more Christian videos starting to happen. DeGarmo Key are on MTV. Well, that's great. I feel like, once again, this cross-pollination thing's kind of taking place, and we're going to see a lot more of that happen.
How does an unknown young person get into the gospel industry?
Bingo.
They come to Nashville and work at Opryland?
Well,
Texas?
I think the thing we try to do is just say, what is the first talent you've got? And if they go, well, I play keyboards, and we say, well, then get real good at playing keyboards. In terms of paying attention to your talent, pay very close attention to your talent. Let's develop it. They go, well, I'm just not that good here. Well, then get good. If that's your key is keyboard playing, become the very best keyboard player. If you're going to stay in gospel music, we take it one step further and go, now, protect your heart. I mean, if you're going to be in gospel music, there's a message to this whole thing. There is a bottom line about where it's coming from heart-wise. And make sure that you're being loyal to that message. Make sure that it's a believable message from you. Don't just get into this because you think it's a way to get into the music business. Because there's too many other ways to get into it. That happens to be Blanton Harrell's philosophy, is there is an underlying believable, you really believe what you're talking about here. If you don't, well then go do some music form that represents what you really do believe. I mean, if you believe blue hair and streaking is what you should be singing about, then go do songs about blue hair and streaking. But if you really...
How about working with a record company or working with a management company or working with a gospel publishing company? How would you get in there?
I mean, a lot of this business is who you know, so a lot of it's just getting to the cities, where it's LA or Nashville in terms of gospel music, and starting to meet and let people hear what you do. And it takes time. It just takes time for people to kind of get comfortable with you. If you come across too confident or too, I've got it all together, that turns people off. If you come across like, I've got this talent, I feel like I would like to either use it for playing in somebody's band or writing songs with somebody, then just start meeting those people and through whatever ways you can. Let them hear tapes, get tapes to somebody who can get a tape to them. And over a period of time, if you're consistent and if you're persistent, I believe it's going to pay off for you.
How about, how much money does someone make with a gospel label? Is it less than secular?
Oh, that just depends. Money in this business, in the music business in general, is made through all kinds of different pennies, whether it's publishing or your
No, I'm
production.
talking about an employee getting a
Oh,
salary.
an employee?
Getting a salary.
It's pretty, I think it's very comparable to what somebody's going to make anywhere else in the secular industry, because there's still the same need for good secretarial work. If you've got a particular strength, you still have to get in usually at the ground level and fill the Coke machine and make sure the plants are watered. But as you do a good job there, I think you will always grow up and be offered a much more creative. A lot of people come to us wanting, I want to be the creative side. I want to do this. I want to design this. And we go, you know, we don't need any more creative people. We've got creative people running out our ears. We need hardworking, very conscientious people who will take their job description, whatever that is. If that means wiping the tables, they will wipe the tables better than anybody else will and go, what else do you have for me to do? And once you see good attitudes, that's the one thing we look for, is somebody who's got a good work attitude. When we see that, then we get creative for them. We start going, I bet that person would do real well in A&R or in publicity or in publishing or in tour management or whatever. And then we start moving them up the ladder, basically.
Our entry-level salaries 12 to 15,000?
I would say entry level on most people is in the 12,000 bracket. That's probably a good entry level.
Mid-management would be 20, 30?
20 to 25, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And depending on how well it grows or how fast it grows, or the way where we're at, we have different divisions at Blanton Herald. We have a tour management division, we have a concessions merchandising division, we have a publishing division, a publicity division, we have reunion records, we have all of these areas they all have an accounting for themselves. It's not, you know, this big corporate umbrella that funds it all. They all have to pretty well make it and break it in their own way. So as they all do very successful things, then obviously the salary's going to be better and the pays are better. So the incentive is there for everybody to win.
They reach the position of being a mogul like yourself.
Well, we won't talk about that.
Mike, thank you for being with us today.
It's been great.
Don Cusic with the Music Biz.